What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here. Thank you so much for joining me, and today we are going to be taking the brand new Masterworked version of the Outbreak Perfected Exotic Pulse Rifle and running it through the entirety of the Last Wish raid to see how it performs and ranking it on every single encounter. This was already arguably the best primary exotic Destiny had ever seen. With the Exotic Catalyst, how much better is it? Well, let's find out. So, first things first, what is going on with this brand new Exotic Catalyst? Well, it says that first off, it now generates orbs off multi-kills, pretty useful, and it comes with an additional perk, and that perk says increases nanite damage. Enemies that die with nanites attached to them generate additional nanites. So, it's gonna do more damage than it otherwise would, which makes it very interesting for taking down raid bosses, hence why we're here. But you may be wondering, just how much of a damage increase is it? Well, to see that, we gotta go to the Trossland for a bit. Now, without the catalyst equipped, as you can see, I kill some enemies and the nanites do 57 damage. Then, I put on the catalyst, make this weapon masterwork, kill some enemies under the same conditions, the nanites do 72 damage. This is an increase of around 26-27% depending on how you round. So, let's head back into the raid against Kalli and see if this damage increase makes a difference. Well, as you can see, just like last time, it outputs quite a lot of damage. By the way, if you want to see the non-Masterwork version taken through Last Wish to compare, it's linked up above. But that 30% damage bonus seems to be pretty noticeable. In fact, the first time we ran this through, and we even had a couple people do some golden gun shots, we had to 3-phase Kalli. Well, technically 1 phase, but we had to go into and hide twice. And with the Masterworked version, we were able to stick it out and go for that second round and kill her, as you can see. The fact that we have a primary weapon doing this much damage is crazy. It's an easy 1 phase on Kalli, 9 out of 10. The only thing keeping it from a 10 is that some weapons are able to kill Kalli within the speedrun strat, where you get it to teleport between 2 different platforms over and over again and then just try to melt her. We tried that with the Outbreak, we got close, but we didn't quite make it. Moving on from there, we do have Shuro Chi, and here, it's a lot more intense. There's nowhere to hide, you just die. So we have a very short period of time where we have to DPS this boss for 1/6 of her health, or it's all over. And again, we are just using the Outbreak Perfected. The damage increasing stuff that we are using alongside that is a Well of Radiance with Lunafaction boots, obviously, as much Riven's Bane gear as we can put on, and 1 Titan is hitting her with a melting point. And that's pretty much what we do in every single encounter during this raid. And as you can see, we take her down easily, like crazy easy. In fact, last time we did this, we did have to have someone pop in a golden gunshot to her stomach to stay alive. It was very inconsistent. The Masterworked Outbreak is anything but inconsistent. Every single damage phase, we beat it on the very first try, we had more than enough damage to take Shuro Chi down, to make her flinch, and to move her to the next area. We never felt in danger of almost barely squeaking through a damage phase, having her almost wipe us all. That was never the case. And again, for a primary, that's insane. This was killing her about as fast as shotguns would have killed her. And therefore, Shuro Chi, 10 out of 10. You can't ask for anything more, especially because, again, it's a primary. And also, don't forget, in all the portions when you're killing ads, you have a weapon that has Firefly essentially souped up times a billion. And the fact that enemies produce more nanites that do more damage than normal, and then can cause more nanites to spawn when they kill enemies, means that this thing can chain and chain and chain between all of the lower level red bar enemies, and it's fantastic for the ad clearing portions of this encounter as well. So yeah, 10 out of 10. Now it is time to move on from there to the next encounter, which is Swolgaroth, aka Morgeth. And here we got one big damage phase. There is no hiding, there is no 1/6 of the health. It is all or nothing, and that's going to give the Outbreak Perfected a lot of time to ramp up and do more and more and more damage. It's also going to give the extra damaging nanites tons of time, and just tons of nanites in general, to inflict their damage. So, how does this weapon perform here? Well, first and foremost, against the adds, just like Shuro Chi, fantastic. The adds spawn in groups here. It is so nice to just shoot basically one taken thrall and have all the other thralls just die from nanite attacks. It is actually pretty sweet. But against Morgoth himself, as you can see, it absolutely melts him. We were able to get an easy one-phase kill, and this thing is outputting as much damage as other power weapons like the Thunderlord. It's truly absurd. Now, last time we did this damage phase, I broke down the math and the values of just how much damage output you're getting, and I'm going to do the same thing now. So we actually started out here with 2,361 damage for the very first shot, and ended with 8,497 damage, and that's the ramp up of damage. Now, that turns out to be a 360% damage increase from start to finish. Last time, the values were a little bit different, and actually it was a 375% damage increase. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's well within the margin of error, and there's a lot of factors going on. There's a rift, empowering melees, there's just a lot of stuff. So again, well within the margin of error, but it shows you an over 300% damage ramp up. That's truly absurd, but that also shows you that unfortunately the Exotic Catalyst has no effect on the actual damage of the gun, the ramp up itself. What it does affect is, again, those nanites. So just how much damage were we doing there? Well, there's again a lot of factors, but at the very beginning of the phase, with a Titan shoulder strike melting point and empowered melee and the well active, last time without the catalyst it was 4,293 damage. This time, with all those factors, the nanites were doing 5,366 damage. That's an increase of basically exactly 25%. Clearly, we're getting a pretty substantial damage increase. And actually, there's a lot of nanites. The amount of nanites you actually get to damage any enemy you're fighting in terms of a boss is actually pretty significant. So I would say that this could easily lead to a 5 to 10% damage increase overall compared to the non-masterworked version. And that's nothing to scoff at when we're talking about DPS just this high and a gun this good. Oh yeah, and by the way, 10 out of 10 against Morgoth, absolutely phenomenal. Moving on from there, however, we have a very different encounter with the Vault. Here, there's no bosses in sight. There are very powerful knights that will wipe your team, however. And here, the Outbreak's ability to kill multiple adds at the same time, the almost enhanced version of Firefly, and those benefits you get from the catalyst very much come up. You are quite often chaining nanites with this, killing one guy, the next guy dies from the nanites, he produces nanites, kills the next guy. It really, really is quite easy to just kill one guy, look away, and look back and 4 guys are dead. It's pretty insane. Now, against those more powerful enemies within this encounter, so the Eye of Riven and then also the Knights. The Eye of Riven, it's totally fine. Like, you don't have to use this weapon, but if you want to, you can kill that guy pretty darn quickly. Against the Knights, however, if you do have this scenario where the Knights spawn in your location and it's open, you can start shooting them from the back and, you know, with the help of a friend, easily take them down. And I would say it seemed to be a pretty noticeable increase in how fast we took it down from last time. Like, it is definitely better, but not better enough to warrant only using this thing. If you don't have a clear line of sight and you have the black smoke that's barricading off your area, the Knights will emerge and you will not have enough time to kill them with the Outbreak Perfected. You will have to use a sword, a shotgun, etc. Now, With the Outbreak perfected, it's not hard to do that, to put on a legendary sword or the escalation shotgun or something like that. So it's actually pretty reasonable to use this weapon just for its ad clearing potential and then have a backup escalation shotgun to take down those knights. Probably pretty wounded knights because just so many nanites. So in this encounter, very, very good. I'm going to have to go with, I was going to give it an 8, but honestly it's more like an 8.5 out of 10 just because it's so easy to switch weapons and deal with the knights and use this for everything else. And moving on from there, we have the last big damage phase against Riven. How does the Outbreak perform here? Well, we're trying to do the cheese. Obviously, we're trying to look at damage numbers. We're trying to do damage, so we're going to do as much damage as we can in a very short period of time. Can the Masterworked Outbreak actually take down Riven within that cheese? Well, it turns out not initially, at least, because we did a very traditional damage phase. Stood in the normal spot, used a melting point, empowering rift, and that's pretty much it. And we did that so we can compare with last time, and last time when we did basically the exact same stuff, the max damage was almost 1,600,000 damage. No one crossed that line. This time, however, several people did. We had someone with 1,700,000 and another person with well over 1,600,000 damage. So the 5 to 10% overall damage increase I said last time seems to be pretty reliable here. But unfortunately, that still makes it unable to take down Riven within the cheese, at least doing this method. Now, we also tried going under Riven's chin. You can actually still get crits down here, and the nanites are more likely to hit Riven and less likely to hit her eyes, which they can actually do if you're doing the traditional method. And with that, it also comes with some inconsistency. As you can see, I'm shooting and it's crits, and then the next moment it's not crits. But doing this, we did have an even higher damage number with 1,800,000. So, if you do everything right, you get as much damage as you possibly can, and likely you're on the PC, it is technically possible to take down Riven with a Masterworked Outbreak. However, it is pretty inconsistent, and frankly, you're putting yourself through a lot of trouble when shooting her in the mouth with rockets with cluster bombs is still much more effective. Or heck, the Prospector Exotic Grenade Launcher, way more effective. With that being said, I wouldn't let this put a damper on this weapon's performance. We are talking about it in the upper echelon of possible damage outputs and comparing it with, again, heavy weapons. That's insane. This is just a lowly primary, and it's nearly one-phasing Riven, and that is very, very impressive. I've tested a lot of exotic weapons against Riven. The second place is actually the Cerberus +1 for a primary, and that only did 1,000,000 damage. Barely crossed that threshold. So the Outbreak is almost twice as good. And so an 8 out of 10. Very, very good weapon. And frankly, not an unreasonable backup to use all of your cluster bomb rockets and then just switch to this to finish her off. In any event, it is time to move on to the final encounter, which is the Queen's Walk. Here, this weapon is fine. Frankly, in this encounter, you're mostly just chaining supers. You do have some opportunity to use a weapon like this, and it's not bad killing enemies from far away. There is still a lot of thralls and some enemies bunched up, and the nanas can be fantastic, especially when you do get teleported into the nether region or whatever it's called, and there are just so many thralls. This weapon is fantastic for taking those guys down. But again, chaining supers is probably just better, and especially when you do have to deal with multiple knights, this weapon can fall a little bit behind. It's still phenomenal though. So here, another 8 out of 10, and overall, throughout this raid, I think I've got to give this weapon a 9 out of 10. And that's actually 1 point higher than the 8 out of 10 it got last time, and I think it's well deserved. There is a noticeable markup in power when using this weapon Masterworked. I think the biggest difference was against Shuro Chi. It went from barely being able to squeak out enough damage to kind of easily being able to squeak out enough damage. And that's because Shuro Chi is just so easy to hit with a ton of nanites. They all wrap back around and hit her in the head and stuff. So It's very, very good. And this is frankly, especially with the nerfs coming to some of the other favorite PvE exotics, this is now up there. This might be one of the best PvE exotic weapons in the game, if not the best. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this interesting. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.